Kaye here at Late Bloomer Show, except today I am back at Bamboo Oasis with my friend Daryl, who is going to talk about his favorite subject, beans, right?
Today, for sure, that's my favorite subject.
So I am going to turn it over to Daryl. He grows lots of beans, and he's going to talk about, why he is going to continue growing some varieties and not continuing the other varieties, why he likes some better than others. So this is really all about beans and great bean advice, so I hope you stay tuned.
Hey everybody, I'm Daryl at Bamboo Oasis, where Kaye has done quite a few videos. Just go to her playlist and look up Bamboo Oasis, and we've done a lot of videos together. I don't have a channel of my own, so Kaye is helping me get the word out about things I do in my garden. People seem to find interesting. So this time we're going to talk about beans. And I'm a little shocked actually as I look around here, and I'm a little overwhelmed that I have gotten this much into beans. Now some of the ones we're going to go through all these today. Some are ones that I intend to keep growing forever. Some I'm going to show you, it's like, nah, this is the last year, I'll never grow that one again. And so, we're going to go through each. I'm going to talk about the advantages and disadvantages, why I think this is a good bean to grow and this one's not, or whatever. So, we're going to dive into beans today. Before we start with the beans though, I want to do one quick thing. If you watched a video a little ways back where we made some dill pickles, right at the beginning of it, I showed you a weird potato. It was my Mickey Mouse potato. Maybe you remember seeing my Mickey Mouse potato. I got another one for you today. All right, now think desert, think pyramids, okay, think Egypt, that sort of thing, and I unveil to you the Sphinx potato. That's my Sphinx potato. All right, thought y'all would enjoy that. I have grown beans ever since I started gardening. I've been growing organic gardens since 1975, so this is 48 years later, I'm still into growing beans. But I've really gotten into them a lot more in the last few years, and one big influence was a seed exchange that I went to. Highly recommend, if you can find a seed exchange happening in your area, go to it. They're incredible. And at the seed exchange, when I walked in, and people would have a table with all kinds of little packets of seeds so that they could trade or sell to people, and almost the whole table was full of beans. And there was a bunch of tomatoes. And other than that, it was just here and there, you might find some corn or some, something unusual, but it was mostly a bean show, okay? And I got quite a few of them, so many that I couldn't grow them all the first year after I got them. So I'd take 2 or 3 and try them one year, and then 2 or 3, and then this year I finally got to some that I still hadn't even tried, and wow, have I been wowed by a few this year that I got 3 years ago, and now I finally tried them. And most of these beans, I only got 10 or 20 seeds in the packet. So that's enough to get you a start so you can make your own seed, and then next year have a lot to eat and have your own seed. So that's how all this got started, and that's what really jump-started me even more on beans. So let's dive into it. Well, I'll start with the Anasazi bean, which I got at that seed exchange. And the history of the Anasazi bean is they found a clay pot in a cave out in, I believe, Arizona, or no, it was Colorado, I think. And it was like 1,000 years old, but the seed were still viable, these bean seeds, and they planted them, and now, of course, now we've got them. You can get them. I think there's a catalog that even has them available. But so I only had 10 of these that I got at the seed exchange, and
that's so much like my pea seed.
Yeah, wow. They do resemble. Yeah, I'll show you that then. Yeah. They look a lot like your goose peas.
Yeah, those are pretty.
But I didn't make. Now, see, notice that's it. That's all the seed I made. I started with 10 seeds. Now I've ended up with, I don't know, what's there, 60 maybe, 70.
Really?
Yeah, because they weren't prolific producers.
Oh.
It wasn't a whole lot of pods. I didn't eat any at all. Yeah. I hadn't even tried them. I wanted to make seed, and they weren't making that much, so I left them go for seed only, and I may not even grow them again, even though they're pretty. And that's the thing, I mean, you can grow beans because they're pretty looking, and there are quite a few that are really cool looking, but my parameters, here's what I'm looking for in beans. I want whether it's a bush bean or a pole bean, and as I age, I'm starting to prefer pole beans a little more because I don't have to get down on my hands and knees and crawl around to pick. It's a little easier to pick them right in front of you. So, but I'm looking for plants that put out a whole lot of pods that are very productive, you know, and not, I don't want just a few and have to grow a whole bunch of vines to get a lot of beans. I want to just grow a few vines and I get a whole bunch. But now this year, the two that I tried from the seed exchange that have really impressed me, and it's a whole new concept I never thought about, is not only do they produce a lot of pods, but they produce them all close together like in a cluster. So instead of going in there and grabbing pod and pod and pod like that, you go in there and you grab 10 or 12 at one time. Boom! Okay, now I like that. Okay, whether it's, I don't care, you know, pole bean or bush bean, that's a great feature to have. And I got 2 pole varieties this year, which I'll be talking about, that do that. And they have shot up high on my ranking, and they will definitely be grown next year and in future years. So Anasazi, although it makes a real pretty bean, it didn't put out very many. And the pods are, that's the other thing. If it's going to make a pod, I'd rather it be a nice long pod with a whole lot of beans in, not a little short pod with just a few beans in. Okay, like what I'll be talking about here in a second. So, you know, so I think I may eliminate, and I tried Anasazi. It's a nice bean, but probably won't grow that again. This is just a, not really a bean, it's a snow pea. I made a few snow pea seed here. And here, 2 different kinds. I grew Oregon Sugar Pod 2 and Oregon Giant. Very impressed with both those snow peas. If you want to try out some snow peas, they make really big pods and they put out a lot of them.
Both?
So, both of them, yeah.
Okay.
Equally impressed with, well actually the Oregon Sugar Pod 2 was more productive.
Yeah.
It made more pods, but the Oregon Giant pods are a little bigger. So, you know, even though they make less pods, you still get a lot of bean or pea out of it. Okay, and then, all right, this is a bush bean. A little, it's a green Romano flat-potted bush bean. And you can see there's a lot of variation in color. A lot of beans are like that. They don't all look the same, and others, they all look the same. But this one has a lot of tan and dark brown mottled look to it.
Wow, those are all the same thing?
That's the same bean, yeah. But I like it because it's extremely productive. It really puts out a lot of pods. Don't be dropping beans on the floor.
I know, I did.
But to answer your question briefly, I don't know. I think you would probably get the same variety no matter which bean you planted here. It would probably produce a whole variety of colors. This is my red noodle bean. Okay, now a red noodle is a Chinese yard-long bean. So I've grown, there's 3 kinds that I know of, and I've grown all 3 kinds, and I grew all 3 kinds this year. There's this red noodle, which is a maroon kind of color, and then there's a Thai purple. This is all the red noodle.
Even though it's all, some of them are
Yeah,
different?
there's a variation in there again.
Wow,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So here's what I've discovered this year, and have decided to eliminate 2 of the 3. I'm only going to grow the red noodle in the future.
Oh.
Because, here's why. Okay, the Thai purple just was not very productive. The green Chinese yard-long bean, it makes a lot of beans. I was impressed with that. But they get about a foot long, and really that's probably the best time to harvest the yard-long beans is when they're a foot, maybe 1.5 feet long. If you let them get real long, then they're going to get more seedy and they start getting air inside and the seed, you know, they're just not like good snap beans anymore. So,
and you try to eat them as snap beans, right?
yeah, I like to eat them all these. I want to eat fresh as much as possible, you know. They're the best then. That's one of the cool things I'll mention right now about growing beans is that you get to eat them fresh. They're easy to grow, okay? Beans are easy to grow. If you're a new gardener, it's a good starter plant. Grow some beans, they're easy. Okay, the other thing is if you're inattentive in your garden or things just happen in life and you get busy and you didn't get out there to pick the beans in time, well, you didn't lose anything because what do? They turn into dried beans. You can save them for seed or like, you know, here I got a whole bunch of, this is rattlesnake bean I'll talk about in a minute. I got a whole bunch of them. If I feel like it, I can take half, 3/4 of those and cook them up and eat them. So they're, they're still edible, even though maybe you just didn't have time, you missed the good harvest time, and they went and turned seedy on you.
That's what I always do.
Yes. Well, it's not a loss. It just takes longer to cook them when they're a dried bean, and they're not quite as good as fresh right off the vine either. Well, to finish with the green one, like I said, when it got about a foot long, it started to puff up with air and go to seed, basically. It wasn't like you want it to be. You had about a 1 week window. So you had to be out there every few days getting these things right at, during the few weeks that you have for that happening, and then you're done. The red one, there's a longer period of time that it produces beans, and it stretches out. It's not all at once, it stretches out. And you've probably got at least 2 weeks on each bean that it could hang there and still be good as a fresh bean. So you don't have to be as attentive as you would with the green ones. So it's just a little easier to work with. And so I'm eliminating the Thai and the green. I'm going to go with the red noodle only next year. All right. And this is the rattlesnake bean. I highly recommend this bean. Very productive. Never had any problems with it. It's a pole bean.
Does the rattlesnake have a string?
No.
Do you string it? Take the string off when you're...
You might occasionally find one where you do that, but usually I just snap them and there's nothing.
Okay.
So I highly recommend the rattlesnake bean if you've never grown those. That's a good one. And this little tray right here. I love lima beans. And I love great big lima beans. That's what I don't like those little dinky things, right? So for many years I've tried this one, the king of the garden, lima bean. And now, actually with the limas and really with all of these beans, when you look at them right now as I have them dried, they're about half the size of what they're going to be when you eat them fresh. They're going to be thicker this way and bigger around. They really shrink when they dry quite a bit. So King of the Garden does make a big, nice lima bean. But it's just, and I can't say this is across the board the way it is. It is for me and my microclimate here. It's not very productive. I don't get very many pods. I decided to quit growing King of the Garden.
Okay.
Okay, I have another one that I like better. It'll be in these trays here. I'll show you.
Okay.
But for other people in a different climate, maybe King of the Garden would really thrive. So I don't want to talk bad about it. It's a good lima bean and it's a big one. So so much on that. But that's another thing you can do with beans is stagger your plantings. Plant some, wait a couple weeks, plant another batch. Keep them coming on. This one is this is a bush bean. It's a Cherokee. It's just a yellow wax bean, a round bean. It's very, very prolific, productive bean, and I will definitely be growing this again. I speak very highly of it. I really, really am impressed with that. How many I get off of one little bush, So, the bush beans come in all at once, kind of. Like they'll do their thing for maybe 2 or 3 weeks at the most, and then they're about finished. But during that 2 to 3 week time, they will give you so many beans, and so if you're wanting to can beans, or want to put your beans up, freeze, whatever, you might want to go with the bush bean. It'll keep you real busy for a few weeks, and then you're kind of done with it.
Yeah.
Whereas the pole beans, as long as you keep them watered and keep them growing through the heat, they just produce all summer long pretty much, as long as you keep them picked. Now, if you let them actually go to seed, then they're going to shut down because they did what they're supposed to. But if you keep them from succeeding, then they'll keep trying. Okay. All right. Now this one, these seeds they're like perfect round little beads. This is a new bean for me. I tried it last year. It's called the winged bean. It didn't have enough time in my growing season to make mature seed. But I really wanted to try it because it's an interesting bean. Here's what it looks like in the pod. This is why they call it a winged bean. It has all these little flares sticking out. But the cool thing about winged beans is every part of the plant is edible. The bean, the leaves and stems, and the root makes a potato-like root, which I still have not checked out. Now that I've had some success with them this year, I'm going to dig some up and see about this root. But it's just an interesting bean to me. And the only way I was able to get seed this year is I started these under lights real early, like probably late January or something. I mean, they were, you know, and they are so slow growing in the beginning. It's amazing. They just sit there. You know, even after I had them, you know, I had little plants and I put them out at the right time. And usually once I put something in my soil in the garden, boy, it just explodes and takes off. Not these guys. They just sat there like, waiting for something, I don't know what. But eventually they kicked in, and it's a pole bean, so they climbed the trellis, and you're supposed to eat them when they're about this size, and you just break. They have a great taste, I will say that. They taste excellent. These are Kentucky white half-runner beans. Now, if you notice in there, they're not all white. It's the first thing I noticed. I mean, most of them are white, but there's black ones in there too. So I don't know, beans just seem to get a lot of variation in them over time, I guess. I don't know. I will say this about beans and, you know, are they going to cross with each other and all that kind of thing. All right, now officially, they have to be a half a mile apart if you're growing two different species, right? To keep them from crossing, if you want to be 100% sure, they should be a half mile apart. However, beans do not readily cross. I mean, they need to be fertilized with the help of insects, okay? Well, apparently bean flowers, they release their pollen before the flower fully opens. And so it would take a big bee, like a bumblebee, a carpenter bee, something like that, to push his way up into a bean flower and be able to do that fertilization. So, you know, just regular small bees flying around and, you know, moths or, you know, anything else, they're not going to do it. So pretty much don't worry about your beans crossing with each other. Okay, I wouldn't worry about that much at all. And I plant all mine side by side. I had a whole row, you know, about 8 different kinds of beans, all side by side in a row. I mean, I love seed saving, and I do a lot of it, but you know, these companies that are trying to keep heirloom varieties alive and so forth, you know, try to give them your business. You know, if you're buying seed, try to work with them, because most of them are small, struggling companies, and I think they're really important. You know, what I do in my garden, and I save my seeds and use them again next year and all that, I mean, that's how humans have survived forever, you know, since we've been gardening, except there were thousands and thousands of us gardeners out there doing that. And usually, you know, a family might have a certain kind of bean that, oh yeah, grandpa and great-grandpa, they always grew them. And so that's kind of our family bean, we grow that. Now we have some friends, you know, 10 miles down the road, and they have a whole different kind of bean that they grow. Well, they grow their beans and we grow ours, and then we swap out sometimes, and so we get to taste each other's. And a lot of people were doing that. And over thousands of years, some of those people were paying more attention than others, and, you know, maybe doing some crosses or selecting for certain traits, or, you know, we fine-tuned these and turned them into what we have today. And you know, in the old days, when a couple got married, you know, that was the main gift. That was the most treasured gift you could give a new couple, is a whole bunch of seeds for their garden so they can survive too. And they can continue this tradition. If we could somehow summon up for a moment all of our ancestors, okay, and get them in a big room and tell them what we have done, in that we've just, we don't bother with, we buy our stuff at Walmart or whatever, you know, we don't garden anymore hardly, you know, we grow hybrids and GMO stuff, and, you know, can you just imagine the thunderous, in unison, you did what? You know, I mean,
that's just not only about gardening.
But I mean, what we have thrown away.
Oh, I know.
Thousands of years of work and dedication, and, you know, to come up with, and then we act like it's nothing. And a lot of these varieties are just, once they're gone forever, you know. And some of these, there's only a few people out there still growing this particular kind of bean or corn or whatever, you know.
And don't forget the piece I gave you.
from your family.
I didn't even know about that until last year.
Wow.
My uncle gave me just a few in a little bag.
Yeah.
Maybe 100 seeds.
And
you know,
well, I made a bunch that you'll see. I made a bunch.
I made 1,000 seeds out of that.
Yeah. We should all be ashamed of ourselves, and all of our ancestors would be very ashamed of all of us.
Well, we're doing what we can now.
I mean, maybe not all of us that are still gardening and doing it. They'd like that, but
we're doing what we can now.
we're doing what we can now. I mean, we got to. But see, that's what I'm saying.
I'm sharing your knowledge through my channel, and hopefully those people will share it through their channels.
And so these small companies, these heritage, seed companies, we really need to support them because they're keeping these things alive. But more importantly, they're doing it the right way. You and I aren't.
No.
I mean, we pick up. Okay, hey, look, that's a big pepper. Or that's a big tomato. Or I'm going to keep seed from that.
Yeah.
Well, and we keep seed from one pepper, one tomato. There's plenty of seed there. That'll be good for next year. But that's not a good way to do it. It's better to keep seed from 100 or 200 different ones. So you keep the genetic diversity that's inherent in that particular plant. So those companies, what they do to get around that is they hire dedicated gardeners all over the country.
Oh.
Okay, so we want you to grow our beefsteak seed.
Ah.
We want you to grow the Berkeley tie-dye seed. And they're never going to cross. We don't have to worry about that. We'll have pure seed. And they're trained to do it the right way. We don't want seed from just 1 or 2 tomatoes.
No.
We want it from 500 tomatoes, and all mixed together.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the kind. So we want to keep that diversity that's in that.
Well, maybe
plant.
they'll contact me for the wild goose seeds.
There you go.
Wild goose pea seed.
So and they also have big farm. That company might have a big farm of their own, where they're keeping track of things that can be grown close together and not cross. And so they are doing everything they can to keep these things alive and to keep the strain pure.
Yeah.
And the home gardener's not going to be that picky and not be that successful in that endeavor. So support those seed companies when you buy seeds. I just found this out. I didn't realize this till this year. All right, for tomatoes, if you grow cherry tomatoes, they don't cross very readily. The flowers are tiny, and apparently the pollination just doesn't happen. You can grow 10 different kinds of cherry tomatoes side by side, and they're not going to cross. But try that with big tomatoes, like I did this year and last year. I grew one long row, where each cage was a different kind of big tomato. Cherokee, Berkeley tie-dye, beefsteak, that Gary Osena, I love that one. I keep my own seed. I planted beefsteak this year. I mean, I like big tomatoes, right? So I planted my beefsteak. There's my beefsteak tomatoes this year. They all look like that, right there. Obviously crossed with something I grew last year.
Yeah.
And so now I need to go buy new beefsteak seed. And I'm going to use one of these companies that needs some support, a small heirloom seed company. All right. This is the Kentucky half runner I started to talk about. It's not all Kentucky white half runner. It's not all white.
Excuse me, what does half runner mean? I always hear that and I don't know.
Maybe because the pod's half size.
Oh.
I'm guessing.
Oh.
I don't know. Not sure why they call it a half runner. But this is another thing that remember I said I like lots of pods and I like big pods. This makes little pods. You got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, five beans in there. Well, that's a lot of picking, a lot of shelling, where I can do the same amount of picking if I get a pod that long and I got 15 beans in. Well, that's better for me. I'm, into saving time, right? So I'm not going to grow the Kentucky white half runner anymore, although it was pretty productive. It put out a lot of these pods and, it tastes good. It's a good bean. I'm really trying to whittle, as you can see, I have a lot of different kinds of beans. I'm really shocked. I am. To put it all together, I didn't know I was into it that much. What an addiction this has come in. I wanted to just mention briefly these little tags that I make. Make sure you do that. I mean, and I do it as soon as I bring them in from the field looking like this. I make a tag and put it in there so I do not get mixed up what bean. I mean, some it's obvious, they're the color and stuff you can tell. Others look enough alike. You really need the tag if you're really trying to keep track of things. So be on that. All right, now here is one I got from the seed exchange that I was talking about. And this is a bush lima. It did not have a name or anything. I named it after the first year I grew it. I called it the most awesome bush lima. And so that's how I name it and tag it. But look at the variation in the color.
Beautiful.
I mean, they've all, you know, there's tan, there's red, there's, you know, I mean, it's a beautiful bean. And they put out so many pods. And they taste awesome. And of course, they're about twice as big as what you're seeing here when they're fresh.
Sure.
So I love it. I've grown this now for 3 years. And I will always grow this bean. This is a good lima bean right here.
Okay.
So I'll have that. Also, notice how handy bamboo comes in. Again.
You use
when you're
bamboo
doing
for
things.
everything, yeah.
Okay, yes, this is a keeper. I've grown this for many years. This is Gold Marie. It's a pole bean. It's a yellow flat potted bean. And it is the earliest bean it comes soon. I planted it and the rattlesnake at the exact same day this year. And this came on about 10 days sooner. I was eating beans from Gold Marie before the rattlesnake even started.
Looks like you ate most of them.
Actually, there's a whole bunch more out there, and I have a bunch left over from last year too, so I wasn't too concerned about collecting seed. I've got plenty, and that's plenty for what I do. You don't need many vines of that, you know. And,
I want to try
get a
that.
lot.
I'll get some seeds
Yeah,
from
you
you.
want to get some of these.
So we're making a stack over here, right?
Yeah, now
okay,
we're
good.
gonna
Cool.
rebuild the stack.
All right. And
this-
I recognize those.
This is from Kaye's family. She gave me a few seeds to start with, and I ended up with this. Now, what I'll say about this, these are, okay, Kaye told me this was a bush bean, okay? And it is mostly a bush bean, but it makes a big, high bush. It takes up a lot of space.
But it's a pea, not a bean.
A pea, okay, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And but it does do mostly a bush habit, but it sends out some long runners that climb, and it got up on my tomato cage and, you know, climbed
It'll
up
grow
in there.
all over. It
So
will.
I would treat this the same way I do yellow crowder peas I'll be talking about in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
They're very similar in looks, you know, the pods look about the same and all. But I plant my yellow crowders as a pole bean.
Right.
But I end up getting a lot down at the bottom on like kind of a bush arrangement, you know, and then you also get some up on the pole.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so
That's what I'm going to do.
although these are beautiful looking beans, I prefer the yellow crowder.
Oh, okay.
Because the yellow crowder's a little bit bigger of a pea, okay, in the pod, and it's more prolific. It makes more pods than this one does.
Oh.
And it takes up a little less space. Like I said, this makes a big bush. It took up a lot of space.
Oh, it's huge.
So I like the yellow crowder. It's more compact, it produces more beans, and they're a little bigger.
Okay.
So, and we'll get to that down in this tray. We'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
Okay. Now.
I know that one.
Yeah, this is the Scarlet Runner bean.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
I highly recommend the Scarlet Runner.
I can't get them to grow anymore.
But I have some negatives to say about Scarlet Runner too.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. First of all, now remember these are all half the size of when they're, you know, ready to eat.
They're huge. Yeah.
These things are plump. I mean, not only are they big this way, but you turn them, they're fat. You know, they're thick beans. So this is like the biggest, fattest lima bean you can get, I think, or it's like a lima bean. And so I do like them for that reason. But of all the beans I grow, these are the most difficult to get out of their pod. It's hard when you're getting them green, you know, and you're eating them fresh. It is hard work. I mean, if you had arthritis or something, you're going to hate that bean.
And you're not going to eat the pod for this bean, right?
Right, yeah, you've got to take them out of the pod and eat them like a lima bean.
Okay.
That's a negative. I still will probably grow some because there's just nothing bigger and fatter and plumper than a Scarlet Runner.
No.
And they are beautiful on your trellis. They make a lot of little orange flowers and it just looks really pretty, you know?
They're so pretty, yeah.
All right. And here's the yellow crowder, which is just a lot like Kaye's pea.
But not as pretty.
Yeah, not as pretty, but
No.
I prefer them.
Okay.
And I'm going to stick with them, I think.
They look more like a black-eyed pea, really.
Okay, and now I want to show you another bean that I got at the seed exchange, and I've sat on it for, that was 3 years ago I went to that seed exchange, and I grow a couple varieties each year and try them out. I pulled this one out this year.
Ooh,
very pretty bean.
Wow.
And all it said on the tag was Granny Mead, Tennessee. I think it was like 1789 or something.
I gotta have that
They
one.
had traced it back to, okay. Well, not only is it pretty, but it puts out a whole bunch of pods. And best of all, it puts them out in a cluster. And you can reach up there, you can grab 10 or 12 pods and throw them in your bucket.
Oh, I need that one.
Yeah, this is a
Granny
great
Mead,
bean.
Pole Lima.
Yeah.
Oh, no, Granny.
Granny Mead, Tennessee.
Oh, Granny Mead, Tennessee. Okay.
Yeah, that's all I know about it. It didn't have any more info. But I'm really impressed. And this is the first year I ever grew it, and I will grow this every year now, for sure.
That is really pretty.
Yep.
And you just have to remember that it was twice that big when it was on there.
And it's been traced back to the 1700s, so, this is a true heirloom here. So I'm excited to have that on board here. Another one.
Oh, that's beautiful too.
This is the Christmas Lima.
Oh.
Okay, which
You
imagine
could make buttons out of those.
they get so big.
So pretty.
I mean, really, they get like 3 times this big when you harvest them. They're huge,
Oh, wow.
but they're not that productive as far as putting out a whole bunch of pods. So even though it's not as productive as I like, I will still continue to grow Christmas Lima because it does make the biggest lima bean, and I'm just really impressed by big lima beans. I love eating them.
And they're so, pretty.
They're so pretty. Yeah.
You could make something out of these once they get really hard, right?
I guess
You can make jewelry out of it. That would make a beautiful necklace.
Yeah, when you really get into it and look at all of the little designs and patterns, it's like they're all unique and different and really cool looking. And again, from the seed exchange, you see how cool it is when you go to a seed exchange. Look what I've come up with over the years from going to that seed exchange. All right, this one, and Kaye grew some of these this year. I gave her some of these seeds. This is the red calico.
Yeah, it's still
pole
going.
bean.
It's still going.
Okay, and this is extremely productive. Unfortunately, it doesn't put its pods out in nice clusters for me, but it puts out so many pods that it's still going to be a bean I grow. It really gives you a lot of beans. And they're very tasty, of course, and quite pretty.
Yeah, they're more like pink and mauve when they're fresh. And then they dry darker.
Let me do this.
Yeah.
The tower's getting a little tall.
Yeah.
All right, and for the last one, we're going to talk about a little bit here. This, again, I grew this for the first time this year. This is the Hopi Orange Lima. But if you notice, look, I actually divided them up. I saw so much variation. These are all, you'll get all of this when you plant Hopi Orange Limas. You get this deep maroon color, you get this tan, you get an orange one, so I have a plan. I want to see what happens. And Kaye, I want you to join in on me.
Okay.
And Denise too, and maybe Patrick,
I
some
like
other
those
people.
the best.
Oh, do you?
So interesting.
Okay, well, you can pick. But here's what I'm going to do. I am planting only the orange ones next year.
Okay.
Because I'm going to see if I can get it back to being a Hopi Orange Lima.
Oh, yes.
Because that's how it got its name, I would think. It produced orange limas. Well, I don't know how all this variation ended up in here, although each variation is pretty cool on its own.
Okay, so you're just going to grow the orange ones.
So I want to grow the orange ones. I thought Kaye would probably want to grow the maroon color since she's into red so much, but she got drawn to this one, so we'll let her grow these. I want her to plant these, and Denise is going to grow the tan ones. And if I can find a couple other gardeners, I'll get some more of these. I'm just curious. I mean, I think
this is very, very close to...
This and this is very close.
Yeah.
It's just a color difference. They have the same sort of pattern to them. I think these are pretty cool over here.
I do too.
But anyway, I think that each of us, no matter what color bean we plant, we're going to come up with this whole variety in our harvest.
We may, yeah.
Most likely.
Yeah.
But I'm going to see by selecting over many years, maybe I can get it back to getting almost all orange. And I'll try to keep the Hopi Orange Lima as an orange lima.
Awesome.
That's my new project.
One of many.
So you see what can happen when you garden for many years and new things come your way and you, oh, I can't quit growing that, and oh, I'd sure like to try that, and pretty soon you're a true addict, you know? I mean, this is sickness. I need help.
It's a good kind of sickness, you know, it's creative.
Yeah.
You're creating beautiful things.
I love it.
Variation that, you know, God gave us all the seeds in the beginning, and then, you know, a lot of them went away because we didn't use them.
We squandered what we had and lost most of them. You showed a chart probably a couple years ago on your site.
Did I?
I saw something. It showed, hey, it showed how many varieties of tomatoes or corn or whatever were available in an old seed catalog compared to today.
Yeah.
I mean, we have lost so much.
I know.
It's incredible.
I know. Well, we're doing what we can. What's your favorite bean to eat?
Limas. Any kind of lima bean.
Okay.
I love lima beans.
Just because you get, each bean has so much meat to it?
I guess. I mean, when the limas are coming in, I'll cook up, I'll have a little mountain of buttered lima beans on a plate, and that's a meal.
Just like we did with that snow pea meal, remember?
Yeah.
With the butter?
And that's all I care to have. I mean, that fills me up, and I could do it every day for a long time as long as they're coming in. No problem.
Wow.
Yeah. And you know, I don't keep a lot of beans as dried beans. I don't store them that way.
Yeah.
I try to eat them fresh, and I save seed.
Yeah.
And that's about it, you know. But you know, any seeds that you have saved could be cooked up and eaten if you need to.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you so much. Thanks so much for watching this channel, everybody. I really appreciate your support. Daryl and I thank you for watching all the videos, especially in his playlist, Bamboo Oasis. Hit that bell for notifications. Scroll down and click all so you won't miss an episode when you subscribe. Hit that like on the way out, and thank you so much, and we'll see you in the biochar video.
And start planning next year's garden right now.
Planning.
Yeah, not planting, planning.
Planning the planting.
Buying your seeds, getting your soil ready, putting up trellises, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Before snow.
Yeah.
Before winter.
Color, you get this tan, you get an orange one, which, so I have a plan. I want to see what happens. And Kay, I want you to join in on me.
Okay.
And Denise too, and maybe Patrick, some other people.
I like those the best.
Oh, do you?
So interesting.
Okay, well, you can pick. But here's what I'm going to do. I am planting only the orange ones now.